Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Last Moderate. I am John Halim, aka John the Podcaster. This is part 2 of Walking on a Dream, the first installment in our Immigrant Experience series. If you haven't caught part 1 yet, go ahead and pause this episode and listen to that episode first. That way, you will be able to follow Fabricio's journey from the beginning. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, leave a star rating, and a review. This lets Apple recommend TLM to like-minded listeners and enables us to get one step closer to bringing everyone together over real human stories. And if you're listening on any other podcast platform, be sure to subscribe there so that you are the first to know when new content arrives. Without further ado, here is part 2 of Walking on a Dream. Wow. So you said that you did all the walking at night. What were you doing during the day? Just like hiding out, or what were you doing during the day?
Yeah, because Mexico's a little more tricky. Yeah, we would just hide out during the day or wait at different, we wouldn't make any moves. We would just stay hidden, eat, rest, and prepare for the night.
Okay. And what type of places would you guys be hiding out in?
In Mexico, it would just be random houses, maybe hotels, sometimes in the car. Sometimes we just sat in the car for like the entire day and we didn't do anything.
Wow. Okay, so continue telling us what happened in Mexico.
So after maybe the third night of us walking, they told us we're going to rest here. And we stayed at a house near the border. Now it makes sense that it was near the border. And then the next morning before the sunrise, they told us, they were like, we're waiting for the signal. We're going to inflate this boat. And this boat was made probably for around 5 people because there was only maybe 2 seats in between and 2 on the edge. And they told us it was 26 of us. And they were like, we're going to put everybody in this boat. Do not move. It will take maybe 5-10 minutes. The river is too deep. At this point, that's the Rio Grande, which is at the border. And they were like, there's a cliff right after that. You will have to climb the cliff. Be careful. If you fall and get injured, you will stay behind. We cannot take you anywhere. You will stay there. And at the end of the cliff, there's a fence. You have to find a hole. There's a hole. There will be somebody right there laying on the ground, and he will pull the fence up, and you will have to slide under the fence. And that's where the Arizona desert will start.
And this is at night?
This was right before the sunrise, so it was probably 4 in the morning, somewhere in there.
So it's dark?
Yeah, it's dark. Yeah, so I now that you point that out, yeah, I couldn't really see much.
Wow. Okay, so how high was this cliff?
It probably took me 15 minutes, if I remember. I'm not sure how high it was because at the time I was so little. I don't know if I go and, see it now, do I look at it and like, this thing wasn't that big. But it was, for me, it was pretty high and it was pretty dangerous. Nobody fell though. But it was pretty dark, like you said, pointed out, but we could see a lot because of the stars and the moon. It would kind of brighten up the way. Okay.
And so were people struggling on this cliff? Like, I'm just trying to paint a picture of what happened.
I would assume so. Nobody did fall, but because they struggled to get up, a few people, the hole was too small on the fence, so they will get scratched, so it will come out with, like, the backs bleeding and stuff. Because they cut it with, like, pincers or something. I'm not really sure. And it will have, like, a sharp edge. And you couldn't pull it too high because if for example, immigration passed by and they noticed the hole, they will know that people will be going through there and just wait for the next group.
Okay. So now you're in the Arizona desert.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you in the desert? And what happened once you crossed the fence?
Can I be honest with you? I don't know how long I was in there.
So you were just walking through the desert?
Yeah. At night and during the day, but I can't remember how long, honestly. But we did run out of water, and at night it's extremely cold, and we just kept walking through it. And this was, we're talking January, so it's probably worse during that season because there's less sun and so on. But we walked a lot during the night. During the day, it was even worse because you were just, I mean, so tired that I honestly do not remember a lot of what happened. I do remember seeing the crosses. I don't know if you ever seen, news or anything, and they show the Arizona desert, and there's crosses where people have died, and they leave their bodies there, and they put a cross, and maybe the animals eat the bodies and so on. There was a lot of that. I know that we did leave somebody behind in the desert. But to me, I personally don't. I mean, I think that in my mind, I never really thought about it because I will feel somewhat guilty about that. Just because, what would happen if we all had tried to help him? But at the end, if we had all tried to help them, we might have all died. But I don't remember his face. I don't remember a lot. It's just his name was Oscar, and that's all I can remember.
Wow. So you're in the U.S. now. What happens next? Where are you going? So you get into the areas. How do you get out of the desert? Where do you arrive? Where are you going next?
So that I remember, they just kept telling us to keep walking and follow the person, and this coyote, he was nice compared to other stories I heard because he shared his water and everything. Other people don't do that. And that I remember, at one point, they picked up a few people and we just kept walking. So the people that had less chances of surviving, which was the elderly, the ones that were like in their 50s, they got picked up, even though they were like, you pick up the child first. They were like, no, we know, he will probably last a little longer. I got picked up on a highway. We hit a highway somewhere, and a black SUV came by, and at this point, I hadn't had anything to eat or anything. So they got me in the SUV, and it was just me and another person. And they I don't remember what happened to the rest of the group, honestly. I don't remember where we split off, or I don't remember if they got picked up. I know a few people got picked up, but I cannot remember, to save my life, what happened to them. It was me and another kid, and a few other kids got picked up by a different vehicle that I remember. And they gave me water, and I drank too much. And I remember maybe like 10 minutes into it, I couldn't take it anymore, and they stopped the van, and I just started throwing up. And I couldn't stop throwing up. And at one point, I was throwing up so much that I was just kind of throwing up air. And the lady started to say, I don't know if he can make it. I don't know, if we got to take him now, we got to do something. So they got me back in the van, and they took me to this house, just by myself. And that I remember, this lady woke me up by kicking me on the ribs. And to this day, I kind of laugh about it because I'm like, at least I was alive. I could feel the kicks. It would be worse if I wasn't alive and I didn't feel the kicks. And she was like, you've been sleeping for 2 days and a half already. You're not here on vacation. So get to work, clean the house, wash the dishes. I'm going to leave to work. If I come back and everything's dirty, I will call your parents and send you back to where you came from. And to me, it was like, this lady's serious. So I was a 9-year-old. I mean, she couldn't really do that, but because she was getting paid. But I was kind of scared because I was like, I've never seen a house with wooden floors. I've never seen a house with air conditioner, or like I didn't even know how to use the sink because I've never seen it in my life. Back home we have something called pila, which fills up with water, and then you get a bowl and that's how you get the water out of it. Here everything was automatic. So she had maybe a daughter that was maybe 14 years old, and she told me she was like, look, go back to sleep, don't ignore my mom. She was like, I'll clean everything. I'm gonna go to school late. And she gave me food. The mom didn't even give me food. She gave me food. She cooked some eggs for me, and she gave me water, and she told me to go back to sleep. So I went to sleep. And then I guess she went to school, and she got back home earlier than her mom, and she woke me up. She's like, when my mom comes back, just tell her that you cleaned everything, that you did all this for her. And I was like, but why? She was like, just do it, please. So when her mom came back, the first thing she was like, I guess you are useful for something. That's the only thing she said to me, and I stayed quiet. And she gave me the broom, so I would start, cleaning outside the house. And maybe I stayed there about 2 days, because I guess I was recuperating from the desert and so on. And that's one of the things I kind of regret a lot. I never said thank you to the daughter. I don't remember her face at all. And if I kind of wish that in this life maybe I could see her one day and say, you helped me out during that. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but at the time, that was a lot because I needed to sleep. I needed to rest.
Yeah, I mean, we do get guardian angels sometimes, man, in this life, and it's great that somebody was there to kind of soften the blow on you a little bit. So after this house where you stayed, what happened next?
They in the U.S. we use more vehicles for obvious reasons, which it makes it less obvious to the police and so on. So they drove me to the Houston airport. I believe there's an airport in Houston, and it was maybe 4 a.m, and we were outside the airport, and we had a sweater, and it was January, and it was freezing, and it was snowing, and a lot of people had said it's snowing in Houston. We're like, what the heck is going on? This was 12 years ago, and we were freezing to death, and that's when my friends came over. So during the trip to the U.S., my sister and I had made a few friends that were younger too. There was 2 little boys. One was named Edwin. That's the one I remember the most. And we met up there again. And I was like, hey, and then he was like, where's your sister and your little cousin? I was like, I'm not sure. And they were like, okay. So we waited for a few hours in the cold, and then a van came to pick us up. No, it wasn't a van. It was actually a small, maybe a Honda Civic. And they drove us to Dallas. And in Dallas, they took us to a parking lot, and they turned around. It was like Edwin and the other kid, I guess they were siblings. They were like, this is your stop. And then they were like, it is? And then he just looked out the window, and he was like, that's my mom, And he just rushed out, and he didn't say bye to me or anything. He just kind of ran to his mom, and the guy just drove off. And we never got to say bye to each other. But to me, I will forever remember Edwin because he was my age. And his brother was younger, so he was maybe between my sister and my cousin's age. But him and I, we felt the responsibility to take care of our youngest siblings. So when we were we met in Guatemala, we went through Mexico together. It was me and him saying, telling our siblings eat or drink this, or we were sharing our food with them and doing, we were the ones that were responsible for them. So, like I said, I never got to say bye to him, but I remember everything about him. And it was kind of rough seeing him go. And then they took me to somewhere in Dallas where we met up with a few vans. And there were white vans. One was going to Washington State, one was going down the Mississippi River, and one was going towards New York. They accidentally put me in the van going to Washington State.
But the intention was to get you to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Okay, but you ended up on the opposite side of the country.
No. So my grandfather, if I remember right, I can't remember who it was, they gave me, my sister, and my little cousin 3 sheets of paper. They wrote the address we had here, and that my parents had given my grandparents and my aunt, and they told us, slip this under your shoe, in between your socks or somewhere, in case of anything. So they did that. I did it. And when they were like, is he going to Washington, D.C. or Washington State? And they couldn't get the response from the coyote because the coyote knew, but he had already left. So I just pulled the slip from my shoe, and I showed it to the driver. And he was like, no, you're going to Washington, D.C. So he called the other van, and then they had to make like a U-turn and meet up somewhere. Good thing it was only like 10 minutes away. I didn't really know what was going on. But we met up, and I switched to the van. But the van for D.C. was full, so I sat in between the passenger and the driver's seat, kind of in an awkward position the whole trip. And there was a few things that happened during the trip, too.
So they make the U-turn. You're on a way to D.C. now. D.C. is where your family is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where they are.
Okay. And so tell us about that journey in the truck or van, or tell us about the van first of all, and the experiences that you had on that van.
So the trip from Texas to DC took 3 days. About a day and a half in, they told me we ran out of money for you. The money your parents gave us, we ran out. So the next day and a half, you're gonna have to go without drinking or eating anything because we can't afford anything for you anymore. And to me, I was like, it's whatever at this point. If everything else has gone through, this should be fine. But there was this lady, and she came to me and she asked me, she was like, "Where are your parents?" And I was like, "At the end of the stop, I guess." And then they were like, "Who else is with you?" I was like, "I was with my sister and my cousin, but I don't know where they are." And she was like, "Why are you not eating?" I was like, "They told me they didn't have any food for me anymore, any money for food." So she was like, "Okay." So every time they bought food for her, she shared her food with me and her water, her drinks, everything for the day and a half. Like I said, I sat in between the passenger and the driver's seat, but that's because the glove compartment kept opening up. So they sat me there so it wouldn't open up because it was annoying. The van kept beeping, but it was really uncomfortable for me because the handle would hit my back, and whenever they stopped the van, it would kind of put pressure on it, and it was extremely annoying. But after the third day we had made stops, the van was almost empty. They just had a few more people from New York and in between New York. We came to this McDonald's in Langley Park, Maryland. And at this point, we called it my airport. And it was maybe 3 a.m. And they told us, they were like, "Hey, kid, this is your stop." And I got out. And the lady kind of hugged me and, like, picked me up. And she got me out. And then all I felt was when I walked out of the van, this sheet just came on top of me. Because I only had a sweater. And I just looked at the lady next to me, and I was like, "Hi," and I was just so tired, and sleepy and drowsy. And then the lady talked. I didn't realize at the time it was my mom, and she talked, and she was like, "Hey, you have a really good kid," and she was like, "Thank you," and she was like, "Take care of him," and she was like, "This is my stop too." So she gave me a hug, and she was like, "Take care, okay?" And then she left with somebody. I never said thank you to her either. So that's one of my biggest regrets too. Along with the girl that helped me out, this lady shared her food and she took care of me. And I know she's somewhere in this area, just because that's where we got off. that was a drop off point. That wasn't a checkpoint. So my mom didn't realize it, and she says that she wishes she could have said thank you to her, but they only saw each other for maybe 10 seconds. My mom, after that, took me to a SUV and put me in the back. And to my left was this man, and to my right was this woman. And in the front, this guy turned around. He was like, "What's up, Huicho?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "I heard that before." And that was a nickname that was given to me by my uncle. And I realized that was my uncle. And then my mom was like, "Do you remember me?" And my dad's like, "Do you remember us?" And then I was like, "I think so." I was like, "Mom, Dad?" And they were like, "Yeah." And to this day, it kind of surprises me because I had seen my dad in pictures. I had seen my mom in pictures, but I didn't realize how much they had changed. And at that point, I had forgotten what they sounded like. I had forgotten what they looked like or how tall they were. I mean, at that point, they looked shorter because I had grown up. And they took me to my uncle's house, and I remember I just fell asleep. And when I woke up, my mom was cooking, and I instantly asked her, "Where are my sister and my cousin?" And she was like, "I don't know."
Wow. I mean, folks, if you didn't think this was a intense story already, I mean, there you have it. But let's talk about your experiences in the U.S. And when you first got here. Talk to us a little bit about the first few days and how you began to acclimate. How did things stack up to your expectations? What did you expect? I mean, I know that's a lot of questions, so we'll just start with the first few days in the DC area. What was that like?
It was shocking. I'm not gonna lie. Everything was in a whole different language that I didn't know. Everything was automatic. Washing clothes was automatic. McDonald's was right around the corner. Something that was, a big restaurant in El Salvador was just something regular people did here. there was a lot of cars. There was, cars over there are breaking apart. There aren't that many of them at the time. There's more now, but it was a huge culture shock. Like, that's the best probably way I could say it. I didn't go out much because it was cold. My parents did buy me clothes for the cold, but in the back of my head, I couldn't do anything until I found out what happened to my sister and my cousin. And it went by maybe a week or so as I was getting adjusted, to air conditioning and heaters, something that I never experienced in my life, and seeing outside, and I just couldn't believe, I thought it was just another checkpoint for a bit. I didn't realize. I knew my parents were there, but it kind of just, I couldn't put my head together and say, these are my parents. And at the time, I was also thinking about my grandparents, and I didn't realize that I wasn't going to see them for so long. And that chased me my entire life. And I think a week later, my mom got a call from immigration, and they said, we have your daughter. And my mom got a call from immigration saying, we have your son. And that started a long process of trying to prove that my mom was her mom. They found out my mom's information because the coyote that was with them was a lady. She was taken into custody, and she made sure that they knew what my parents' information was, so that my sister and my cousin will end up with them. Like I said, not all coyotes care that much. But this lady, even though she got captured, even though she knew she was going to jail, she still gave the information, said, these are these kids' parents, take them.
And so is that how your sister and your cousin came to join you guys? Tell us what happened there, because I'm pretty sure everyone's kind of, chomping at the bit to figure that part out. So tell us how your sister and your cousin got reunited with you guys.
So that I remember, my mom used to talk to my sister probably once a week for a few minutes, no more than that. They took them,
and this is with, like, when she's with immigration, right?
Yeah. So my mom got a lawyer, and to try to prove, that was her daughter and so on. And it went for months. I can't remember, maybe up to 6 months. And at one point, she was able to prove that she was my sister's mom. So immigration told my mom, come pick up your daughter, And they were like, nothing will happen. You'll pick up your daughter, that's it. And the lawyer told my mom, I will go for you and pick up your daughter as the representative. But my mom tells me that she didn't care. She was like, I'm going to go pick up my daughter. I haven't seen her in so many years, and she's over there by herself and, with her cousin. I'm going to go pick her up. So they drove the 3 days to Texas. And the moment my mom stepped into the immigration facility, they told her she was arrested, I believe, which started an immigration process for my sister and my mom. My mom brought my sister home, and my cousin as well, because we lived in the same house.
So sorry, I just want to clarify, who was arrested?
My mom.
So your mom was arrested for being in the country illegally?
Yeah, pretty much.
So they were reunited that way. What happened to your mom?
So what happened is, my mom, for one, kind of felt betrayed because the immigration officer had told her that nothing was going to happen, So at that point, it started another legal process to see if my mom and my sister could stay in the country legally. And we fast forward maybe 3 months of court dates, or maybe even a year, maybe. I got to look at the dates again because I lost track of time. The end result was my sister, my cousin's mom, and my mom were told to leave the country voluntarily. But my mom told me maybe a year ago, she was like, oh, that judge, I was crying of anger. And I was crying, and the judge was like, do you want to leave voluntarily, or do you want us to deport you now? And my mom kept telling the judge, deport me now. Send me with my daughter now. And the judge kept saying, why? And she was like, you don't want me here. You don't need me here. If I can barely afford the lawyer right now, I won't be able to afford a plane ticket for 2 within a month. And the judge kept telling her, like, yeah, but don't you want to stay? And she was like, why? For what? I have an end date. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I'm going to be able to make that. So she kept telling the judge, send me back home, because she was angry and she was crying. And the judge at the end was like, no, I'm going to mark you off as voluntary exit, I believe it's called, for the end of the month. My mom and my sister never left. But my mom told the judge that she wasn't going to leave because she wasn't going to be able to.
Okay. And so with that, they turned around and just went back to D.C., I'm guessing?
Yeah, they came back to D.C., so they moved the court to Virginia. And my mom and my sister have an active deportation order on them. Which
is that still active now?
It's still active, yes. And I'm pretty sure for my mom it's a bigger consequence than for my sister. But they couldn't leave. I mean, they weren't going to be able to afford these tickets within the time frame that they gave out. And for a long time, it haunted us. And my dad and I were, we didn't have anything on us, but they had something on my sister and my mom. So everything that had to be done, it was either done by me or my father. My mom stopped going to school, parent-teacher conferences, because she was scared. So my dad would go instead. My dad would take us to the doctor because my mom was too scared to go. And a lot of things changed. For a long time, when I first started going to school, it was before my sister got back. It was probably maybe 3 weeks into me being here, and I told my mom I want to go to school. I want to go back to school. And my mom didn't know how to get me to go to school. So, but she knew there was a school nearby. She was like it. She knew the word in English meant school, meant escuela. So she went directly into it, and it was a high school. And she was, I have a kid who doesn't know any English. And she didn't know any English either. So she was trying to find somebody that could help her. And then, all these people that spoke English, they were trying to help her out as well. And my mom just went in there without knowing anything. And I can't believe it because she did it for me, just because I wanted to go to school. And at the end, they were like, they found somebody that could speak Spanish. And it took a while. And then they were like, you're going to take him to the school. He's going to get a placement test. And they're going to decide what school in D.C. he's going to go to. And I guess I failed every test. I mean, I didn't know anything. So they took me to Rudolph Elementary School, which was not too far from where we lived. But we had to walk maybe 30, 45 minutes in the morning just to get to school. And that, for me, that's one of the biggest things because the only thing I said was, Mom, I want to go to school. And she had never done any of this. She only went to third grade. And she was talking to immigration about getting my sister back. And she went in there. It was like, I have a kid that needs to go to school. And she didn't know any of the language. She didn't know anything.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to part 2 of our journey with Fabricio. Again, I do apologize for the poor audio quality. The room that we had our interview in was not designed for audio recording, but I hope it wasn't distracting you. Be sure to subscribe to The Last Moderate on your favorite platform in order to be the first to know when part 3 of Fabricio's journey becomes available. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe, leave a star rating, and a review. This helps Apple know that you are enjoying TLM, and it will recommend it to other listeners. Also, be sure to follow The Last Moderate on Facebook and Instagram to get constant updates on the show. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.